I know. I probably should have thought to do such a video when it comes to being closer to Halloween, or what schools are unaffectionately calling Black and Orange Day. But thinking about the ghosts of Christmas past and one of our favorite storytime characters in A Christmas Carol, I thought that people might be interested in what the Urantia Book considers ghosts, and of course what they're representative of. Let me start off by telling a quick true story. I remember waking up one night from my bed, feeling like somebody was watching me. And immediately when I rose and came to attention, all of a sudden the floodlight on my adjacent wall turned on. Almost immediately, almost as though something shot through my wall. And of course, the motion sensor picked it up. And within the next few weeks, these instances kept on occurring where I'd wake up, get startled, feel like someone was watching me, and then within that heartbeat, right? Almost like someone was, panicking themselves and realizing that I caught them flying through my wall and setting off my motion detector. That, of course, would turn on my floodlights and illuminate my whole backyard. So the occurrence of me waking up and seeing the floodlight go on every few weeks could not be explained, since the light was functioning normally in the evening, and I was driving myself crazy thinking some sort of semi-material entity was panicking every time I was waking up, retreating outside my exterior wall. Needless to say, I removed that floodlight, and I have thusly been sleeping soundly since. First and foremost, as for humans turning into ghosts, the Urantia Book is very clear that usually on the rare occurrence where a mortal has to redo a third-dimensional reality experience, that they rarely ever return to their planet of origin. Kind of makes sense, right? Redoing the same patterns, the same culture, the same environment probably has less weight for a redo than versus a whole new experience on a different planet. According to the Urantia Book, our essence and memories have the potential towards being eternal, being made from an almost indestructible Urantia soul that is representation of the human mind in divine spirit, with a propensity towards fusing with one or all parts of the sacred Trinity. These can take the forms of spirit-infused, sun-infused, father-infused, of course, through our adjuster that we've discussed in other videos, and Trinity-embraced individuals in the form of mighty messengers. However, before this should happen, there are various stages of evolutionary development that we need to achieve as we make our way onto the learning planets or mansion worlds as we traverse our way into the very, very, very grand universe. Much of the world was different before Jesus Christ Michael ascended their throneship in our local universe roughly 2,000 years ago, which included evil spirits or entities that were known to possess other individuals. Even the Bible makes note of these entities throughout both the Old and New Testament sections of the Bible, which of course my favorite being when Jesus supposedly cast a legion of demons into a group of pigs. But alas, even in the Urantia Book, 1516.5, we hear Christ Michael say to the mentally afflicted mind that, Amos, you are not possessed of the devil. You have already heard the good news that you are a son of God. I command you to come out of this spell. Having the man regain their senses, who was already known to have periodic bouts of insanity. But if evil spirits and demons were a forgotten page in our planet's history, this would be a very short video indeed, which brings about entities that partially find themselves betwixt, between the realms of the spiritual and mortal existence, and are the very reason why we even have the Urantia Book, which is of course appropriately titled The Midwayers. Introduction. Midwayers are spiritual beings who play a key role in the universe's functioning. Midwayers are described as beings of a hybrid nature, halfway between humans and higher celestial beings. At first glance, these creatures might be falsely perceived as having no place or to be an accident of time by individuals not knowing what they were creating at the time. However, nothing could be further from the truth. Midwayers can be created either by a superhuman or Adamic stock entities, which helps define the several orders of midwayers to help bridge the gap between the material and spiritual realms. Primary midwayers are known to be nearer to angels than man, whilst secondary midwayers are nearer to man than an angel. These primary beings were once thought to have been created by accident during the time of our planetary prince's arrival, when their 100 corporeal staff members accidentally interassociated with each other, creating these beings through a non-sexual liaison. Speaking of procreating, Midwayers have no ability to reproduce their own numbers, despite playing a central role in both facilitating communication and spiritual guidance for human beings. The role of Midwayers in Jesus' life was significant, and the Urantia Papers sheds light on their work in relation to him. This opening section on Midwayers highlights the importance of Midwayers in the universe. Speaking of the Urantia Papers, the easiest explanation of the creation of the Urantia text is through channeled messages via an individual that was a Midwayer that initiated communication with Dr. William Sadler through a sleeping participant, which is one of the many abilities Midwayers possess. It should be stated that secondary Midwayers are some of the closest relations to humans when it comes to personality and intelligence. And Midwayers are generally bound to this planet for future generations and will remain on our planet long after our own departure from Earth. Origin of the primary Midwayers. The primary Midwayers were created in a unique way on Urantia, combining both spiritual and material elements. When similar beings exist on other planets, their creation involved different methods. These Midwayers emerged as part of an unusual interassociation between the material and spiritual aspects of the planet's evolutionary system. The corporeal staff of Prince Caligastia, who was our planetary administrator at the time, brought with them 100 ascendant Urantia beings from Jerusalem, which of course is a higher world that's in store for many of us, who initially had no reproductive abilities, stepping down to our planet using Adamic DNA stock to live their lives in the flesh. Upon arriving on Urantia and being given human bodies, they became capable, of course, of reproduction, which allowed for the creation of the first Midwayers. This reproduction occurred through a non-sexual supermaterial liaison between male and female members of the same staff, resulting in the birth of the first primary Midwayers. These beings, midway between the material and spiritual realms, were highly valuable in supporting the prince's administration. They served as intelligence officers, studying and observing human races, assisting in the development of human society from afar. Their ability to function effectively as intermediaries made them essential for carrying out the prince's mission. Initially, only a small group of 50 Midwayers was created, but this number expanded significantly as their utility was discovered. After a year of successful observation, Prince Caligastia authorized production of more Midwayers, resulting in the creation of 50,000. However, the power to create Midwayers mysteriously ceased after each couple of the corporeal staff produced 1,000 Midwayers, and no further creation was possible. The most fascinating feat associated with all of this is that the corporeal staff members was still successfully able to parent these semi-material beings just like they would normal material creatures. Figure that one out. Corporeal staff and their descendants. The corporeal staff had been given reproductive abilities for the purpose of combining their celestial qualities with the material traits of the Andon tribes, for those of you that remember Andon Infanta, a precursor to the Adam and Eve plan. However, after the Lucifer rebellion, the staff's ability to reproduce was severed, and their descendants became increasingly separated from the original plan. After the rebellion, the descendants of the corporeal staff, particularly the rebels, were seen by the primitive humans as sons of the gods. This led, of course, to mythologies about gods coming to Earth and mingling with humans, often portrayed in legends about mighty heroes or giants that perhaps you might be familiar with. The planetary rebellion, led by Caligastia and his followers, affected a large number of the primary Midwayers. Around 80% of them joined the rebellion, becoming disloyal and departing from the original mission on our planet. Those who remained loyal to the original plan entered the service of the Melchizedeks, high spiritual beings overseeing the planet's spiritual development. The rebellion had also disrupted a plan to produce a new type of being, an aristocracy of benevolent leaders, intended to be teachers and rulers of human society. This plan had involved the union of the corporeal staff's offspring with the Andon tribes. But due to rebellion and the subsequent failure of these unions, this ideal was not realized. The secondary Midwayers, who had a more direct link to the Adamic plan, were created after the failure of the primary Midwayers' efforts generations previously. Their origin was more complex, as it involved a combination of the Adamic stock, from, of course, Adam and Eve, and humanized descendants of the earlier staff. The secondary Midwayers were the offspring of 16 unique progenitors, who were born from a combination of sexual and non-sexual reproduction. This was a remarkable process never before seen on Urantia, and these beings had both mortal and supermaterial qualities. Secondary Midwayers. After the fall of Adam, the primary Midwayers, who had remained loyal to the Melchizedeks, continued to serve the spiritual leaders, while the secondary Midwayers were closely linked to the center of Adam's son and the second garden attempt. And for those of you that haven't seen my other videos, Adam's son was one of the original sons of Adam and Eve. Over time, the secondary Midwayers went through various organizational changes, but many of them strayed from the original right path. A large portion of both primary and secondary Midwayers joined the rebellion, and their disloyalty caused significant disruption. By the time of the rebellion's aftermath, only a fraction of the original 50,000 primary Midwayers remained loyal. A significant number of the secondary Midwayers also chose the rebellious path. Following the rebellion, the remaining rebel Midwayers were imprisoned and await the final adjudication of the system's rebellion, which is part of the ongoing cosmic justice administered by the Most Highs. And again, refer to my previous videos if you don't know who they are as well. Before the arrival of the thought adjusters and the spirit of truth on Urantia, some of the rebel Midwayers were able to influence mortal minds. This phenomenon, confused in ancient times with demonic possession, was a result of the rebel Midwayers' ability to manipulate certain inferior mortal minds. With the arrival of Christ Michael's pistol, which brought the spirit of truth to all humanity, these rebel Midwayers were no longer able to possess or control human minds and were stripped of all authority and power. The belief in demonical possession became understood as a mix of mental illness, hysteria, and spiritual misinterpretation in later years after the spirit of truth was poured upon Urantia. And the Urantia book goes over a lot of these religious beliefs, and that's where a lot of our superstitions come from. A lot of our superstitions came from ghost-based religions where, if you had a bad relationship with somebody, that they would haunt you in later years after they were deceased, or they would curse you. And so a lot of these superstitions, throwing salt over your shoulder or, not walking underneath ladders and everything else, eventually was associated with, whatever religion they were currently following, just so they could sleep at night, right? Because a lot of these superstitions had some type of original base. Although, these events of so-called demonic possession happened thousands of years previous, right? And according to this book, doesn't mean it's true, but according to this text, they claim that demonic possessions and all sorts of evil entities trying to possess or hurt individuals has been greatly tamed, right? I'm not saying it's 100%, but according to the Urantia book, they really kind of claim it's no longer a problem. All right, so the final outcome. After Christ Michael's pistol and the advent of the Spirit of Truth, no further possession or influence over human minds was possible for the rebel Midwayers. These beings, once extremely active and sowing mischief, are now held in custody, awaiting their final adjudication. The work of the rebel Midwayers on Earth is now regarded as part of the planet's spiritual history, illustrating the effects of disloyalty and rebellion in the celestial order. These interactions or violations, if you will accept the term, led to many tribal stories and superstitions, like I discussed before. Even though this is an oversimplification of the orders of Midwayers, a good novice understanding of them might begin with just knowing the two popular groups that were known on our planet, which we discussed, which included the primary Midwayers, who were created initially to serve the prince's administration before Adam and Eve, and after Andon and Fanta, and functioned as intermediaries between the material and spiritual worlds. Most of them were lost to the rebellion, but some remained loyal, and their later work assisted the Melchizedeks. The secondary Midwayers were the first individuals that were born from the union of the Adamic and humanized staff descendants, which of course came after Caligastia. They became a separate order with distinct characteristics. Their fate was more closely linked to the fall of Adam, and some chose rebellion, which led to their eventual imprisonment. Midwayers still very much exist on our planet and are more representative of a higher form of benevolent creature that we once experienced by their rebellious brethren. Today, they assist in the spiritual order of life and are a vital part of creating a necessary bridge between the worlds of spiritual and material existence. The Midwayers played an essential behind-the-scenes role in also guiding Jesus' spiritual and intellectual development. They were present during key events in his life, from his childhood through adolescence, helping shape the environment in which he grew and ensuring that his spiritual journey was directed towards his divine mission. While their influence was often subtle and indirect, Midwayers continue to be instrumental in preparing us all for the cosmic adventure that awaits the willing. So the next time you see something in the corner of your eye or feel like you're being watched, like me, perhaps think less of some trapped spirit and more of a spiritual friend.